Painting is exactly like sculpting. I'm going to prove that to you now, and I'll put the download in the description so that you can prove it to yourself. So let's get straight into it. This exercise, what it's meant to do is cultivate something called a mastery experience. And that is just, you know, where a piece of knowledge clicks for you, which is why I very highly recommend trying this out for yourself. But just watching me do it should hopefully be somewhat inspiring as well. And what we're doing, the idea is we've got, if you've ever tried to sculpt in a piece of software like Blender or anything like that before, you might have started with some kind of preform. We're just replicating that, but in 2D, and we're going to treat it exactly as if we were sculpting. So here we go. I'm going to start with the eye sockets. And it's not just pretending that we're sculpting in software. If we were sculpting in real life and this was a lump of clay in front of us or in front of me, what I would do and what I think a lot of people would do, the first thing is use your thumbs and push the eye sockets in. Just make them a little bit deeper. Right, that always makes something look just a little bit more like a face. And you see how just by selecting some of the darker value, and you can use this material ball I've given to, and with what is basically our soft manipulation brush. I don't know what it's called in Blender or what have you. It's just the basic sculpting brush, but it's an airbrush. This is the airbrush, it's the soft brush. And it just looks like we've pushed the eyes in like a divot. And I can grab somewhere bright, like I say, on the material ball or on the thing, and I can also make it look like the cheeks are just a bit more pronounced. You know, to make a divot, you're gonna have, for example, here, the top left is going to be darker and the bottom right is going to be a little bit brighter. And if I flipped that, instead of looking like a divot, it would look like it was poking out. And in fact, I'm going to show you that now. So the top left, roughly where the light's going to be coming from, is going to be the nose. The nose is going to be sticking out, so it's just going to catch more light generally, which is why I'm starting with the light. And then the one side of the nose, that's going to be a little bit darker. And just look how much like a sculpture this is appearing to be already. Okay, that literally looks like when I was in school, I would make, you know, get a blob of blue tack and try to make that look like a face. This looks about on that level right now, right? It really does look like, you know, sort of the startings of a sculpt of a face. And this is like my third or fourth attempt at recording this, so I can actually show you some examples. You know, so this was like my second attempt to record the video. I quite like the way this one looks. Notice how these two look quite different. I think there's a third, but I can't remember that one. Okay, so we're going to continue. Okay, we're going to make it darker on the, especially right here on the bottom of the nose. Just make it a little bit darker. It's almost going into a shadow. I've tried to avoid shadows here because cast shadows are a little bit breaking the formula. Like I said, I'm trying to just cultivate a bit of a mastery experience when it comes to literally, you know, sculpting with paint. And casting shadows is part of that, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. So there's going to be a little bit of that, but not much of it. I'm going to make the inside of this eye socket just a touch darker. Okay, so we got basically the startings of a head, and it does look like something that maybe someone who's bored would have sculpted out of blue tack, but that's exactly what we're going for. And I think if people try this out themselves, if you guys try this out yourself, or just from watching me do it, I never try the things out that I see on YouTube whenever they say to try it out, but I know some people do, and obviously that is going to be better for you. I think that even getting to this sort of stage, you know, should really demonstrate the concept. Another big part of this, which is maybe something a bit like cast shadows that I don't want to talk about too much, is silhouette sculpting. So this is one of the biggest ways to sculpt. You see that was a massive change. I just completely changed their silhouette. So there you go. Not sure how detailed we're going to go into this face, but I'm going to make sure that by the end of this demo, you know, I've at least shown the very basic parts of this process off, and hopefully inspired some people to use some of this in their own artwork, or even have a go at this themselves, or for yourself, because like I say, I'm going to try and get it in the description so that you can download it. Not entirely sure how I'm going to do that yet, but we'll give it a go. So now what I'm going to do is, the nose is a little bit low. I'm going to lift the nose up just a little bit. I'm not trying to get this to look like a good face, but I am a tiny bit. I don't recommend trying to get it to look like a good face. And all of those ones that I showed you previously, when I first painted them, and I can guarantee most people, even really experienced artists who do this sort of, who would do this exact demo, the face is going to be distorted. You know, it's going to be some parts. You're going to have one eye that's a little. That's fine. That's what the liquify brush is for, right? So we're trying to avoid a little bit of that here. Obviously, it's easier if you don't have to use the liquify brush, but the proportions aren't what we're getting at, right? It's just the general feeling of sculpting. I'm going to grab from the ball here even. And like I was just about to say before I interrupted myself, I'm doing the muzzle, you know, the mouth, but it's not from down there, it's from here. The mouth kind of bulges out, right? So we're getting that in. Okay. There's a bit of a bulge there, right where the muzzle is. Okay, so it's not looking too bad already. I want this to be a fairly short video, so I'm going to try and get us through this as to not waste viewers' time. Just the bridge of the nose there, it goes, you know, a little bit in, right there, keystone shape, that's called. So that's just going to be a tiny bit darker, and I'm just going to do that by just brushing over it like that. Okay, and I've gone overboard on that to demonstrate it, but that's okay. We can also use other things that you'd find, well, both in real life. You can wet your hands, can't you? And then you can smooth over a clay sculpture, and it will smoothen it out. And you do have these in digital, and we do have these in 2D art even. You know, if you're doing a charcoal draw, if you're doing this in charcoal, you just rub it with your hands. And here we have the blur tool. So blur tool's really satisfying, especially, you know, kind of digital blur tools. Blurring's really satisfying, especially in traditional art, but I think in digital you get this perfect blur, and sometimes it looks really nice, sometimes it looks really, what's it called, like not authentic. But we're going to be using it there. So there you go. You see I just smoothed it out a little bit. Just gets rid of any of the brush strokes, really. Should we start to put in the mouth? And just for the mouth, I'm going to show you, this is a more hard brush. What this is the hard default digital round brush. All I've done is change, well, obviously I've changed my own pressure sensitivity and stuff like that, but all I've done is gotten the hard round brush and changed the head to a flat one. That's all this brush is, and it's my main brush that I use all the time. All of these are brushes that I use all the time. I only use very simple brushes. I don't really use any at the moment. I'm trying to implement it a little bit because, you know, it is still good to do, but I don't use any brushes with texture on them at the moment. I just use, you know, these basic digital brushes. It's where you've got the most control. So there you go. You can see it probably still would have been better to use the blur brush there, but I'm just trying to show you that, you know, it is possible and what kind of effect you can get. And also it is going to be this line here, right in between the lips. So you've got the top lip, the plane is facing down, it's going to be darker. The bottom lip, the plane is facing up, it's going to be brighter. And it's going to be like a shadow right across them. So that's where the hard brush is kind of coming in useful. But then again, a small airbrush is kind of like a hard brush, right? Okay, and then we can come in after and use the blur tool, and I'm going to just blur this top part of the lip, and right here going to get rid of these brush strokes and blur it for the bottom part of the lip. We can even grab some of the highlights, get the airbrush, right, and I can even, you know, just start to sculpt the lips themselves a bit, maybe even the angel's touch, is that called? I don't know what that's actually called. It's a bit too strong there, so we're gonna walk that back. Just remember, you have got, I mean, this is digital. We can overwrite as much as we want. We can make as many mistakes as we want. There's really no need to worry about anything in digital painting. That's why I think That's why I'm certain that digital painting is the best, by far, medium for beginners to learn with. Because I believe in malleability, and I believe that for beginners to learn, the best thing for them to have is a medium that is very forgiving on their mistakes. So that's why a lot of this stuff is going to be in digital, and it's easier to record. Okay then, so that's enough on the lips. We're going to get into a little bit more detail here, but bear with us. I'm going to do the eyes now, and the eyes, we just want to start with this basic, just like a ball pushed into the head. That's all we're thinking, just a squish ball pushed into the head. So we're thinking our top eyelids right here, or it's just the top of the ball. I could literally, for the eyes, copy and paste and manipulate this ball and put it in the eyes, and it wouldn't look too bad. So that's really what I'm kind of getting at here. Just because they are spherical in shape, right? Okay, so we've got the eyes here. Also, you got to think right here, there's not going to be much light getting in, so I'm going to let that be extra dark. And it's going to be the same for the other side, maybe even more so, because it's, not on the side of the light. And look, it's just slowly... It's not like fading in, but it's almost like we're actually sculpting a piece of clay to look like a face. It's like we're actually, manipulating the form. There's no layers or anything like that. We're just working it like a piece of clay. And I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, but not every painting can be like this. I've set this one up specifically so that it really plays on these characteristics of painting, like I said, so that I can cultivate, like a master experience, a click moment in people that do this more easily, without having to have basically any prior base knowledge. You can just watch this demo and give it a go for yourself, and maybe give it a couple of goes for yourself. As you can see, I've had a couple of goes, some of which may have been because my mic was in mute, or I've recorded it the wrong. I've had a couple of goes basically. So this, at least there's some nice examples I can post as well. So yeah, we're going to keep going with this one. We might want to give them an ear, and that's something that I did in the other ones too. So the ear, this is different. This is more than sculpting, a little bit more than sculpting, but I'm going to show you guys. What we're doing is actually constructing rather than sculpting here, but we can just draw the silhouette of an ear to start with, basically. And then if we follow similar rules, make it a bit brighter where it's facing towards there. Make it a little bit darker. It's kind of facing the same way as this part of the cheek, so we could literally copy the colour of the cheek and say, right, that's going to be the colour of the main part of the ear. And you can see there's a bit of like a secondary light here from the environment. We can even add that to just a little bit to the back of the ear there. And we can get the blur brush, which tends to tie things together quite nicely fairly often. I'm going to actually get the airbrush, and I want this to look more like a piece of clay that we've kind of stamped out. So I'm going to make that edge just a little bit harder there. So you see, we've got something of an ear, and I've roughly measured it to line up with the brow and the nose. Although I don't think the proportions of this face right now are really perfect anyway. It's not what we're going for, like I say. All right, so let's add just a little bit more detail even. Well, I don't know, I really don't have much of a plan on how far to go with this. I haven't recorded a YouTube video in a long time, or attempted to anyway. My last couple of attempts have been this over the last few months. We can put some nostrils in. Those are awful. We can put some better nostrils in. Or just one nostril. Maybe it's that the nose isn't sculpted quite enough for the nostrils to make sense yet. That is actually possible. So I can sculpt the nose just a little bit more. Maybe put that wing of the nose right on there. And you've also, the main thing as well, and I'm going to talk about this a lot throughout the years probably, is contrast. So you see I put that little ball of the nose there and it looks weird. That's not because we've done something wrong, but because we've done something too strongly, right? So we just need to tone that down like quite a lot. Need to grab a color that's not quite as bright and put it on just a little bit more softly, right? And that's going to have lower contrast, it's going to stick out less, and it's going to look less weird. Still not perfect, but a lot less weird than it was a second ago. We still want to make sure this, their left side, our right side of the nose is a little bit darker. Okay, the blur brush back out. Right then, we're looking good. Things don't look right. Oftentimes, just blurring them isn't too bad of a decision to make. Okay then, should we give them the actual eyes? This is going to be the most detailed bit we're really going to do. Other than these nostrils, which were kind of... I would try and maybe get better nostrils than I have here. Right, enough derailing myself. Let's do the eyes, let's do the eyes. Okay, so the eyes, we're thinking about the top eyelid is going to be a little bit darker because, you know, we're looking at like the plane, you know, at the bottom of this top eyelid. I can do that on both sides. Again, don't worry about how accurate it is. The bottom eyelid, that's going to be a bit of a brighter line because that one's facing up instead. You see how quickly, and this is just basic embossing, basically. There you go. It has eyes. Look how convincing that looks after 2 seconds of work. I mean, how long have we? I've only been recording for 17 minutes, and we're already this far, right? How could it go wrong? Just smooth that out. I did that in a bit of a desperate rush a second ago. And of course, remember that the wings of the nose as well, right where they attach to the face, are going to be a little bit darker. I did wonder about what kind of subjects I could do. I might do a few of these, this exact same demo, but with different subjects. Because obviously a face is difficult, right? But I think a face is a really good, because it's an organic form, it is basically a ball that has been modified. There's nothing sharp on a face. I think that made it a pretty good example to use. You know, people like drawing faces, don't they? Okay then, I'm gonna do just the crease above the eyes. That's just gonna be a little hint of that, really. So you see, we're really starting to sculpt our face here. It's not looking, well, it's not looking as good as the other ones, but I think in my previous attempts to record this, I spent maybe half an hour to 40 minutes painting, and so you see those look quite nice. But this attempt on the demo, I think what I've learned a little bit is that it's probably better if I do something that doesn't look great and that has taken a lot less time. I think that demonstrates the concept is a bit more relatable, and it just results in a shorter video, which is better for this because it's not an amazingly large point that I'm making here. I'm really just showing the very basic, you know, foundations of how to paint like a sculptor, which is a pretty common thing that a lot of artists talk about as well. But I think on the first two, kind of actually use like a preform and literally try to stretch and distort it. And maybe I'll do some streams where I'll spend a lot more time painting this face, but I think I don't want to over labor the point, because you really, in order to get that mastery experience that I was talking about, in order to click, you know, you'll go down your own journey and you'll probably end up spending more time on it just due to the enjoyment, which I always do when I have those kind of moments where something very fundamental and foundational is learned that sort of changes the way you view, or just the way you work. You know, your skills improve drastically in that one moment when you learn something sometimes. And I think that's really what a lot of what I'm gonna probably try to go for, especially with my demos and well, yeah, like I say, particularly with my demos, but possibly with this channel in general, is trying to I'd say I'm trying to cultivate mastery experiences. So just trying to cultivate those experiences where you feel like you master a certain skill. And today, the skill that we've chosen to try and master is the skill of painting like a sculptor, because you're going to need to do this all the time. Even, you know, and even if, like I say, not everyone is set up to paint like this, but doing this will increase your 3D vision. A lot of people call it doesn't really have a name. Some people call it spatial awareness. Some people call it 3D vision. Basically, your natural ability to treat the canvas in a three-dimensional way, to see it in a three-dimensional way, and you know, interact with it in a three-dimensional way. Super important for all artists, even cartoonists, even people doing manga. It's important to everyone that they, you know, the more it's a skill that if you have will accelerate your art a massive amount, and it will never hinder your art. So it's always something that every artist wants to learn. And I would argue that as far as what people count as good art, what people are, you know, kind of, you know, what exudes like a level of professionalism is often, you know, a very advanced understanding of the 3D world and how to project the 3D world onto the canvas. I think that's something that's always, you know, for every artist, even from abstract to realism, is going to be something that's going to, you know, take your work into the next level. Okay, so you see we've got kind of the base for a face here. All right, so I think I've probably mumbled on and said everything I wanted to say. This isn't the best painting of a face, I will admit, but it's not too bad considering 20 minutes of work from just this form. Like I said, there's some other things, and I'll probably include my other attempts here in the actual workbook that I put up for download. Probably show them on screen editing instead. And also remember, what I didn't show this time, and probably I think did show in my other attempts, is use the liquify brush. Yes, because things will very likely, I think this one actually turned out okay, but things like the mouth, slightly too big on this one, nose just a little bit too low. You know, I always end up making edits like this. When you paint a face in this way and you don't start from a very sturdy construction, you're gonna end up with, you know, warpage. It's not gonna be, what's it called, proportionally correct. Right, that's all I've got to say on that. I hope this is helpful, and I'm signing out, so bye bye.